Welcome to the RAKK Factor Podcast. I'm Zach Haas with Creek Bottom Land Management. Alongside me is Tom Lester of RAKK Fuel. Today we have Seth Gade with Whitetail Properties Real Estate. He is a land specialist for Eastern Wisconsin. Welcome to the show, Seth.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on, Seth.
So to kind of get started here with you, Seth, we want to kind of learn more about you and how you got Aussie into land real estate. So taking it from the beginning, I guess, how did you get first involved in hunting and what made you make the leap into land real estate?
Yeah, my brother was 12 years older than me, and he was really big into deer hunting. So from a young age, I watched him go out hunting, and he got me into that. He got me into the gun hunting first, and then it was actually my neighbor who they did a lot of archery leagues and all that around, and I was constantly watching him, and that's where I kind of got my love for archery. And then from there on, my brother took me out and had a lot of learned from the mistakes. We hunted a lot of public land, and quite frankly, didn't see many deer, but we were successful, and it was a fun time. But that's where I got the passion from, and it was kind of an addiction, if you will. And from there, it just escalated to points that are, sometimes I think, it's out of control, almost the passion that I have for hunting, in land management and everything else. It all kind of snowballs with that, and that's where I kind of I fell into this job, where I was doing the pond management, and I was a senior aquatic biologist for a very good company here in Wisconsin, and I loved the salesmanship of it and meeting new people and selling things. But I said, there's got to be something different where I can incorporate the love of my hunting and the habitat management and meeting new people with selling stuff. And it was my wife that actually found this, and she said, hey, what about selling land, selling real estate, being your own boss? And I sent in my resume, and 10 years, that was 10 years ago. And I've been working with them ever since. And it's a fantastic job. I pinch myself every day. You got to wake up, and I get to go and walk pieces of property and talk hunting all day with people, and discuss like how they would hunt it and how I would hunt it. And it's been an unbelievable experience. And I'm very blessed to be able to do what I do and work for a company like I do.
So kind of take us through, obviously, with the Whitetail Property Real Estate. I guess walk us through. Let's say I'm in the market. I want to buy a piece of property. What does it look like for a buyer? Let's say start to finish working with Whitetail Properties Real Estate. What is that? Step 1 to step 100. What does that kind of look like? I guess from 1,000 feet looking down.
Sure. Especially in today's market, if you're really interested in buying something, there's not a lot of inventory, and whatever does hit the market goes fast. So if you're not a cash buyer, I would definitely say go already and get pre-approved and know what your budget is. So when you're looking at property and you find that property that's like, hey, it checks all the boxes, that you're ready to move on it. That's kind of the biggest downside in today's market, is you do have to move much faster than you did, say, 3-4 years ago, where you could sleep on it. Maybe browse other properties, look at 3 or 4 that week, and then decide. But now you have to be ready. So I would always say be pre-approved. Second step is, if you're looking at vacant land, hire someone, such as myself or another company that specializes in hunting land or farm or land in general. Okay. We've got the tools on our phones. We know where the boundary lines are. When I list a property, I'm walking every corner of that property. I know exactly where the survey markers are, if they're or where the corner posts are. I know, inside and out, where are the biggest buck rubs on that property, where are the deer bedding. what can be planted food, what maybe an area that could be planted in trees or a native prairie areas, and how the deer navigate through the property. So when buyers come out there, I can show them all that. And there's a lot of buyers out there that are real educated in that, but then there's a lot of them that really don't. Maybe they just started up hunting, or maybe their sons and daughters want to start, and this might be their first property that they've ever, owned, and they don't know how to plant a food plot, or what kind of trees can grow in this certain area, or what can, how would you even hunt it? They're just starting out. So having someone that knows that kind of stuff is important. And then it's basically just write the offer and work with lenders that's also specialize in land. There's banks in general, your housing, real estate kind of banks. They can lend against land, but you have to jump through a lot more hoops. Interest rates might not be as good. Their underwriters don't understand land as much, and so there's just a little bit more red tape to that, where I deal with lenders all the time that deal with vacant land, so that makes the process much smoother. And we cover all the title work and everything too, so it's
so risky. Like with you, Seth, it's kind of, in a way, yeah, you're a salesman, obviously, but you're acting almost more of as a consultant for your clientele. I mean, it sounds like, instead of you don't want to just, you're not trying to burn through a property and be like, I just want to get this sold, I don't really care. It sounds like you're literally holding their hand from day one through, all right, let's get you the right property. This one might not be the right one that fits your goals, your desires, but this one is. Okay, you got it. Okay, this is how you're going to secure your loans. This is how, the next steps, even beyond the sale. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot more to it that might separate, let's say, you from a normal realtor that's just selling homes. I mean, would I be correct there?
Yeah, I would, and that's the way I always approach it is, I want to know, what are your goals? What are you looking for? And there's a lot of times, I would say probably 3 or 4 times a day I'll get calls, and they're asking about a property, and I'm right away, what are you looking for? What are you looking to get out of that property? And there's a lot of times where I'm like, this one's not for you. Don't waste your time. This isn't for you. It's not going to do what you want it to do. But I'll find you something else. Because at the end of the day, when it closes, I want them to be insanely happy with their purchase, and trust that I'm telling them the right information, and I mean, that's one great thing about my business is I learn, or I get to meet a lot of new people and get relationships with these people that that don't just stop at the transaction and the closing table. I'm helping them, with doing, maybe some design work, or, maybe something we talked about, but also become friends with them. And if they got any questions about anything, they can always, I'm always there for them. They send me pictures of what their sons and daughters just shot off their brand new property, and they're tickled pink. They shot the biggest buck of their life, and that's where I get my satisfaction from. So I'm not out there to just sell a property and just move it down the road. I'm out there, I want the best experience for both the seller and the buyer, and I'm going to make sure that property is going to fit for what they want, and definitely not going to try to persuade them into buying something just so we can, get a sale and move down the road. That's not what it's about.
I guess what surprises me the most is, with the interest rates as high as they are, that the properties are selling faster than they were years ago. That really caught me kind of off guard.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't quite sure on how that was gonna work. It has slowed down the real estate market a little bit when you start getting in the higher dollar price tag. But yeah, with land, I mean, they don't make any more of it, right? I mean, that's just bottom line. Right. But with the lack of inventory, and there's people out there that want to invest in land because it's such a great, solid investment, versus looking at your, you could have all the money in the world in stocks and bonds, and you look at your paper statement every month, and either you want to celebrate or you want to puke, one of the two. And, it's just the way it is. But with land, you can go out there and you can enjoy it. It's an investment that's going to make you money in the long run, but it's something you can get your feet on. You can make memories on. You can watch your sons and daughters shoot their first deer on it, their first turkey. You can go out there camping. You can actually stand on your investment versus just having money in something that is very volatile. And I think especially in today's kind of economic times where there's some people that we don't know where it's going to go. So maybe they lost a lot of money in 2007, 8, 9 when the economy crashed then, and they're getting to the point now where they're like, I'm not doing that again. I can't bear to lose any more money. So you see a lot of people then putting more of their cash and diversifying into real estate, which is great. And then it also really helps out their portfolio, and but it doesn't help out the inventory market either, because there's still a bunch of people that are always looking, and when you have nothing out there, those buyers are always in the weeds. So I haven't seen any slowdown when it actually comes to the vacant land side of things.
All right, let's talk about some fun stuff now too.
Yeah.
When are you leaving for Kansas to go hunt with our buddy Matt at Morning Outfitters?
Now, pending if there's all of a sudden a cold front where he's like, Seth, you and Zach got to get down here. We're planning on the end of October, hitting that kind of pre-chase or that chasing phase. Hopefully get some nice cold front, and kind of get them a little more patternable. But I'm counting down the days for sure. But yeah, we're kind of looking at the end of August, right around Halloween-ish, going on down there and doing that.
Did you cry a little bit when you saw those 3 big ones that they shot opening night of early muzzleloader?
Yeah, you're always happy for them, but it's like, man, which farm were they shot on? And could that have been a farm that I could have been sitting on? It's always goes through your mind, but no, Matt's got enough down there to go around, and I don't need to kill a 180, to be happy. But man, it would be nice if one would.
Well, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind a 180.
I'll take.
I know, because I didn't draw that. Since I didn't draw that tag when they sent those pictures over, I was pretty happy for them. But yeah, I had to get a box of tissues. I won't lie. I was crying for sure.
Yeah, I know, and that's one thing I know Seth and I have been excited about with, especially the Kansas hunt, is their whole new draw structure. Like, obviously, you got the back end of it.
Yeah.
Seth and I are sitting there going like, oh, you don't have a lot of hunters this year. Oh, darn.
Yeah. Oh, shoot.
Dang it.
Shoot, there's not that many hunters in there, and this farm's never been hunted yet. Oh, I'm the first one going in there. Oh, shoot,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but you never want to be the guy that you're like, okay, I think I'm number 5 in this stand. You see the old wrappers, the dopey hangers or whatever. You're like, okay. Yeah. I'd like to be the guy that hangs that first, thing of dopey up.
Right.
Yeah. I don't want to be.
So is he
stepping
sending you many pictures?
Wine bottles.
Is he sending many pictures over to you yet?
He's been sending some good ones on over, and it's a completely different animal down there. Yeah, it's just nuts. I wish I had half of the, or deer that were half the size, to shoot around here. But I just want to go down there and have a good time, and it's always a good time down there with Matt, and hanging out with Zach, and gives me a little bit of time to kind of unwind from the business and the family too, as much as I like to be around them. But it's nice to be, get a little break too, and kind of get away and sit in a tree stand and not worry about things. And that's what I do down there. So it'll be interesting, and when there's big bucks running around like that, it gets you going. And what is it, like, not even October yet, maybe tomorrow, October. So it's getting to be that time, and we'll get on down there and we'll see what we can do.
I guess other than Kansas, what's your game plan looking forward? Obviously, you have the realty business going strong. Do you see a slowdown coming up here, that you're going to have some time in Wisconsin to get in the stand and make it happen?
Every year I always say that I'm going to spend more time in the tree stand, and no, you might get like a week or so where it's real quiet, but you would think in this industry that I would have all fall off because most people, who's going to buy land, in October, in November, but it's insane. I sell over half of my properties probably from September to December. So it doesn't slow down. I mean, I'll have people call me up 8 o'clock in the morning on opening day of gun season because they're asking about a property, and I'm sitting in my blind and I'm texting them. I'm like, hey, I'm in the tree stand right now. And they're, hey, what about this property? And I mean, it's just, I know exactly how their hunt's going that morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really doesn't even slow down. Maybe during the rut it does a little bit because if they haven't found something by then, a lot of times, regardless, they're in a tree stand someplace. But the first couple weeks in October is very, very strong, and into about November, and then I have a little bit of a break, and then it kicks right back in. Right after gun season, the floodgates open, and there's people looking. People lose out on leases. Maybe they had a little fight with their buddy that they had all the land with, or unfortunate circumstances, maybe in deer camp that year, and so now they're looking right away, to get into something. So yeah, I just basically try to get in there whenever I can, whenever the wind's right, and mostly just hunt more quality sits instead of quantity. And but if it's perfect time and it's I got the right wind and I've got a nice cold front, I have the ability to be a little more flexible with my schedule too, and maybe I just won't show that property that day. But a lot of times my sellers are probably out there too doing that, so it slows down a little bit. I'll get out there.
And for those that don't really know Seth, but if you go to his page on the Whitetail Properties website, but you'll learn Seth doesn't have what I consider a lot of time, because he has 5 sons. 5 sons and then a full farm that's pretty much a crazy mad scientist regenerative agriculture farm. So that probably makes things a little difficult, I assume, Seth, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you got basically a baseball team sitting there, you definitely, your time's very thin, and then yes, with the farm, I don't have any time to just sit down and relax, but you got to try to find the time to be able to have a happy balance, with everything. But luckily now that 2 of the boys are, they're old enough and they've been hunting with me for the last how many years, but they're also in the woods now. And so I can put a lot more time into getting them deer. But like Dallas, he's old enough now where he can go and sit in a tree stand if the weather's right and everything, and he by himself. And then I can take maybe a couple of the other kids and I go sit in one of my banks blinds, and then Andrea can take care of the little ones back at home. And so it's getting a little bit easier that way. It was really hard when they were all young, because then, there just wasn't time, or if they wanted to go in a tree stand and they're like 4 years old, it makes it quite difficult to be successful, but no, it definitely puts kind of a monkey wrench into my fall plans. That's for sure. But I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. But it definitely, my time is got to be dedicated and kind of organized, planned out pretty good.
Yeah, an organized chaos, right?
Let's talk about Dallas a little bit more. Let's talk about Dallas a little bit more, because how old is he now? It's 13, right?
13. Yep, he just turned 13. Yeah. And
for a 13-year-old, what you've taught him and the things that he's doing on his own, it's incredible. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that new plot and the stand that he picked out and everything that he did with the skidster and on his own. It's pretty impressive, and maybe a little bit of kind of how you've taught them, because I'm sure there's plenty of people that they've got kids that are getting ready to start hunting, and they just want to know what's the best way to do it, where you're not forcing it on them, and you get it to the point where, I mean, Dallas has to love it for what he does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say when they're young and starting out, there'd be times where I take them out and it would be, that last half hour, but they're cold, they're really bored, and they keep asking you, how much, when can we go in? When can we go in, Dad? I'm cold, I'm bored. And it was the hardest thing to do, is to just be like, okay, we're gonna get out. And there were a lot of times where I got out kind of at that prime time, but I didn't want to make it not fun for them, where they don't want to come out with me next time because they're like, oh geez, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to be bored out of my mind, but as they get a little bit older and they got a little more patience, I'd be like, let's another 15 minutes, another 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden we'd start seeing deer, and it's like, see, you could, this is the right time. And, kind of groomed them into that, for when they were younger. But as they got older, like, we'll take Dallas. He kind of matured a little bit quicker, for his age, and I'd get him out there. He'd be seeding food plots. He's, hanging trail cams and, constantly out there with me, trimming tree stands. So he grew up seeing that kind of, all the work that gets put into it. But as he got older, he came up to me and he said, Dad, I want to, give me some old trail cameras. And he started putting them out. And I said, you figure out where the deer are, and he would hang cameras and they would be tilted way down, and just getting squirrels and raccoons. And then some of them would be facing up, getting all the starlings in the trees. And, he was figuring it out, and he was learning by himself instead of me just setting everything up for him. Okay. And then eventually he's like, okay, I'm not getting any deer here. You move it over here. And all of a sudden he's like, hey, Dad, I'm getting a lot of bucks on this camera. And, we go in there and we say, well, look at, this is the reasoning why. And I let him make his own decisions and to learn from him. Because I feel that, me just teaching him kind of, this is where you got to have it all the time, he's not going to learn nearly as much as you do if you learn from your experiences and your mistakes, so from the last how many years, that's what he's been doing is, I give him like 8 old cameras, and they're all, they're not cell cameras, and he'll go in there and I'll let him check them, and he kind of does it himself. And that's kind of groomed himself into like, this year, he came back to me and he said, Dad, I got a really good spot. I'm going to need the skid steer to get in there. And I'm going to need you to run the chainsaw, but I've got a really good spot. It's right by the creek. I can get in there with, and hunt it with a lot of different winds, and they're not going to know I'm in there, the access. And he's just talking to me about it. And I'm like, wow, sounds like a great spot, right? And so that one day we went in there and I grabbed the chainsaw. He hopped on the skid steer, and I mean, he's amazing. He's better on that skid steer than me. I mean, it hands down. And we got in there and we cleared out this great, it's about maybe an 1/8 acre, but he kept these 2 nice apple trees, and we that were right in the middle of the plot. It's got the creek right there. It's got some area where for access, it's super quiet to get into. He picked a tree, and I was looking at it and I'm like, yeah, that's probably where I would go. And listening to him through the whole process, his thought process, it was really something cool to watch. But it came up, planted it in the Showtime and the RAKK magnet, and I mean, he put a camera on there, and it's one of the best food plots that we have, with deer in there, and he's getting a lot of bucks in there. But he did it, that was his idea, and he did it, and that's where he likes to hunt. And I told him, I said, you'll shoot a deer out of there this year, hands down. And he passed up a little spike out of there opening day, and some smaller fawns and with those. But yeah, I mean, he's really kind of taken it, for his age. He's really matured quite a bit into that, and it's just unbelievable to watch him, doing that. And and the kid can shoot too. I mean, he shoots vertical bow. All my kids, they grow up shooting bow, but um, one thing about that that boy is he's a good shot, but he makes it count when he needs to. He's patient. He waits for the right shot, and he picks the spot. And I mean, when he shoots, I mean, the thing is lights up every time. So far, he shoots, and that arrow's right on the money, and so I couldn't be any more proud of him, that way.
Yeah, not to mention he just shot probably about maybe the oldest doe in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you guys seen like my creek bottom page, I had it posted. I know Seth posted it on his, I think on your Whitetail Properties page, but the teeth were almost gone on that old doe he shot. It was incredible.
Oh, I don't know. I've never witnessed a doe just that cautious in my life. I mean, just the way that thing moved through, it was so methodical. But I mean, he waited for that deer. We watched it for an hour and a half, 2 hours for it to make like 50 yards. And then it finally got into the showtime plot, and I ranged her and I said, Dallas, she's at 30. And he's like, nah, just wait. She's going to come in. I really want to make a good shot on her. But we knew that this thing was old. I mean, it had the longest head I've ever seen on a deer. And you could just see the way it moved. It was super old, but it came in at 23 and he shot, and the deer went 20 yards and fell over. But when I always age every deer that we shoot, and when I did, I couldn't believe, I've never seen a jaw with teeth like that before. So, I mean, to be able to get yourself in bow range on something that old, that was a feat for him. And yeah, he's pretty proud of her too. We're gonna send the incisors into Madsen Laboratory and find out exactly how old that thing is. But I mean, I told Dallas, I said that deer could be older than he is. And but yeah, it was pretty neat to see something that that old and still walking around. But we got it done.
Yeah, and that's one thing, like Dallas, like watching them, and it's really cool watching Seth raise his boys and everything that way. But Dallas has that horseshoe. I mean, dropping big toms every year. Now you should see the record-sized doe. Pretty soon, you're gonna start putting your trophies out in the garage, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's already got a lot of wall space tied up, and yeah, it just seems like everything he does real well. He's just gifted at that, and if that's baseball, football, he's a great athlete. But yeah, when it comes to turkey hunting, that if there's the biggest tom out there, it always seems like it walks past him, and he gets it. But yeah, I'm hoping that we're hunting a couple of good bucks this year, and I know that it's just a matter of time. And if someone's going to shoot him, it'd probably be him.
Which is awesome. I mean,
yeah,
right.
Probably no better feeling.
Dad don't need to shoot anything, right? I mean, he's always like, "Dad, you haven't shot a buck in a long time." I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm teaching you, and I'm spending all the time with you guys and whatnot." But that's what it's all about. But yeah, he's already eyeing up a bunch of spots where if I kill this deer, that's where it's gonna go. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll put him in the office."
That's why you better take care of business when you go down to Kansas.
Right.
We can hope, right, Seth? We can hope. No, too, I guess, there's a lot of, obviously, in your job, being a, property real estate agent, you're probably dealing with, I assume, a lot of young families out there. I guess, talk about kind of going back to, your own career. How are you, I guess, helping those parents that maybe they're newer to hunting, they're trying to get their kids into it? What would be your tips now that you've gone through, obviously, Dallas, Ryder, and you got, 100 others? What can you give them as a tip to get their kids involved, or how maybe getting them to stay in the woods longer, see more deer? I guess, lay out that groundwork.
Yeah. I would say you got to make it fun, and let them shoot whatever they want. I think that's one thing that in the hunting industry is really kind of taken a a bad turn is, everyone's like, hey, a deer needs to grow another year. He shouldn't have shot that one. And, I think that especially for young kids, that is the complete opposite that you ever could do. It's getting their confidence built up. Let them shoot at more deer. So when the opportunity comes around where, say that big buck does step out, that's not the first deer they've ever drawn back on or put a scope on and followed through and have harvested. Get them out there and just let them shoot. Um, Turkey hunting, it's a great time. My kids, that's how I started them. I got them into the turkey and let them do that first. And then I watched how did they handle themselves, with the weapon? How did they handle the pressure, through the whole process? And if they were able to do that, then I said, okay, now we're gonna go gun hunting, for the first year when I obviously put there next to them. And then after that, then they could, if they're, efficient enough with the bow, to be able to do it where I know that they're gonna make a good shot, then I take them out there. But with the kids, let them just have fun. My kids are up in the woods shooting chipmunks and shooting blackbirds and whatever, but they're learning skills as they do that. But it's got to be fun. If it's not fun for them, they're going to lose interest. And nowadays there's so many other distractions, with just sports, but video games and sitting on the TV and looking at TikTok and all these other kind of terrible things that they can just sit there and waste time at. Get them out there and get them to enjoy it. Teach them, how are the deer moving through this property, and what is a white oak versus a red oak, in all of those aspects, but make it fun for them. And if they love it and they get into it that way, they won't spend so much time on their phones with, you see kids walking around and their cell phone just glued to their face, but get them out there. And if they get bored, unfortunately it might like completely screw up that hunt, but hey, they will learn to be able to stay in there longer, and when they're little kids, shorten up that window, where I might go out, say at 3 or 2 o'clock, and not expecting to see deer for maybe 2.5 hours. I shrink that window up, and I might get in there a little bit too tight sometimes of a window, but I limit the amount of time that they have to sit there, or maybe the time that they might sit there and not see anything. I try to shorten that window up, if you kind of understand what I'm talking about. So,
Oh yeah. Yep.
they might have 2.5 hours versus 4 hours, where I love sitting there and I can sit there for 4 hours all day long and it doesn't bother me, but I shrink it up. So, maybe we're sitting a half an hour before the deer really start moving, and it helps out that way too. Keeps them in the stand
And it's probably
longer.
a tough hurdle to get over. Like I look at myself. Like I have a soon to be 7-year-old son and then a soon to be 5-year-old daughter, and to me, getting over that hurdle of just breaking my habits of I'm going after big deer, going in early, like you said, playing right wind. I guess, how do you jump that hurdle? Because to me, that seems like 100-foot tall fence I don't want to jump over.
Right.
Yeah. No, there's so much to it. Like I like to typically I like to hunt out of a hang on if I could, climbing sticks to a hang on, get up high, kind of get a little more, concealed up in the tree, but when you have kids, it's there's the double ladder stand up there, not nearly as high. And, I'm not as concealed, or maybe I'm moving the tree stands a little bit. So maybe that instead of that 25-yard shot is now like 15 or 20, so they're not, I don't want them to have to extend out, where they're not comfortable. But it's just something that you got to like switch off your brain, where it's like, it's not about me anymore. It's about Dallas, about Ryder, Blake. How do I get them close? Food plots, all of that, tree stand locations, everything kind of gets switched to how can I get them a deer and make them successful. And then after that, then it's more time where I can get in there and actually, be able to hunt. And I have tree stands that, maybe they're just for me, because I don't want Dallas to try to climb 20 feet up into a portable. I'd rather have him just climb up a ladder. It's much safer.
Right.
So, little things like that, but once they get to that point, it's just kind of something that you have to do, but it's not like,
Yep.
oh, my hunting is just gone, because I live a lot of my hunting then through them. And it's so much more fun because, where I'm looking at hopefully a 4.5, 5.5-year-old deer, they're not around every corner, obviously. So, but when you're hunting with the kid and that doe comes through or a little forkhorn comes through, instead of just watching it and be like, yeah, I just hope that the big one shows up. Now it's like your brain completely changes and it's like, that is the shooter, right? That's what we came in here for. You're going to shoot that yearling deer and we're going to be ecstatic that you just shot that deer. So it really makes it a lot more fun, and, having the kids along, because it kind of brings me back to when I was hunting public land when I was 12 years old. And if a deer gave me a shot and it was a spike, it wouldn't matter. I mean, that thing there was an arrow sent downwind, or, downrange, regardless of how big it was. There was no passing up bucks when I was growing up. No one did that. That was stupid. It wasn't until I got quite a bit older and I started hunting better land that I actually did that. But when you're hunting with kids, it kind of brings you back to that, and it's actually kind of a sigh of relief, and it makes hunting fun again, if it kind of makes sense, instead of just stressful about stressing out about one deer or two deer you're hunting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's definitely the big deer thing. The big deer game is definitely stressful. I mean, in a way, it makes you kind of not like it at times, but no, I mean, it's cool. I mean, seeing like what you do with your boys, and obviously, we always encourage bringing the youth into the outdoors, getting them off the tablets, the cell phones, all that crap that's out there. We want to get them out hunting. So, but no, I mean, we're kind of getting to the end here, Seth. So, we greatly appreciate you coming on, talking about the Whitetail Properties, talking about hopefully you and I have some luck in Kansas, and then also talking and hearing about your boys and how you raised them and everything. That way, it's awesome. But for everyone listening, I guess, how can they find more about you, Seth, and maybe see what you're selling out in eastern Wisconsin? Yeah,
the easiest way is just go on the Whitetail Property website and you click on Wisconsin, and all of the counties are in there. You can click on my profile page then, and you can see all of what I have going. But I just don't work just in those particular counties. That's where I do most of my listings from, but I can help buyers throughout the entire state. I've got a lot of people that buy land in Crawford County and Adams County. I just wrote an offer for Ashland County. So if you're a buyer looking for it, I can definitely help you out anywhere that you're looking for. But if you're looking at my listings, that's the easiest way. We've got all the pictures, the aerial shots, everything right there. I also have a Facebook page, Seth Gade, Whitetail Properties. So you can check me out there, follow me there. So I put a lot of the new listings there first, like a day before they hit the website. So a lot of people can get a kind of a jump start on that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and then obviously too, I know you post on your page about your boys and all that. So anyone listening in and wanting to see what Dallas Ryder and the group are shooting, definitely give Seth a follow on Facebook. But with that said, thank you for stopping in, Seth. We greatly, appreciated the time talking with you and going over everything. But other than that, you and I have about 3 weeks to Kansas. So hopefully next time we're holding a big buck, right?
God willing, man. If it works, it works.
Right.
But I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah,
all right,
thanks
guys.
for coming on, Seth, and good luck in Kansas.
Appreciate it, pal. Thanks. Thank you much.